Oh, banger.
From the guys who brought you Fight Night picks, and for a short time, hitting above the Mendoza line, comes the Allen Brothers' next project. Let's tear the cover off and join in 15-minute card break.
Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick on any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minka Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clellan Farrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt Allen.
And we are back. And look at that, Matt. Apparently I moved the camera around. But hey, we're really looking forward to UFC Fight Night. This one is Dern versus Rodriguez. Matt, we're going to have fun. We're going to be moving stuff around in the new studio. But I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in and enjoying this 9-fight set that we have today between Mackenzie Dern, Marina Rodriguez up at the top. All sorts of interesting fights, but probably not one of the better cards we've ever seen this year. Probably not one of the better cards we've ever seen, period. Next weekend's main event is on that level. They could have thrown it in on this card. Actually, you know, you look at it and it is pretty rough. But I'm excited to be here nonetheless to show off the new studio and to get excited for this card. And everybody over there in the chat that's supporting, Justin Frank's hitting us up in the super chat saying, let's go with the $20. You can hit up the super chat, support the channel with a like and a sub. But yeah, Matt, maybe not one of the stronger cards we've ever seen.
No, it isn't the best card ever, but there's a few bright spots. I'm really excited for Tim Elliott, Mateusz Nicolau. That should be a really fun fight. Alexandr Romanov is normally involved in some sort of shenanigans on fight day, so there are a few good fights on this card that you get really excited for. And the main event has pretty big implications for the division as a whole. Like, the winner might not find themselves in a title shot next, but the winner's probably going to be in like one of those #1 contender, pay-per-view, co-main event type slots next. So I really do think this is an important main event.
Well, guys, boxing, I'm hyped for Damon Jackson, LOL. Very red setup by the Blue Dash. And T. Holmes hitting us up in the super chat saying, let's go. This is a good card to bet on. Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out, Matt. We'll throw it on over to our Fight of the Night screen, as always presented by Manscaped. I moved the camera, so in turn, Matt gets to move a little bit. But Randy Brown, Jared Gooden. Unfortunate that Jared Gooden missed weight at 174, but ultimately still a good fight on paper. And where Gooden makes up in the weight, Randy Brown looked a lot bigger than Jared Gooden when they finally stared down.
He does. Like, that was the first thing you told me when I came here today. You were like, wow, Randy Brown looks a lot bigger than Gooden. And you're 100% right. Frame-wise, he does look like one of the bigger welterweights in this division. And for Randy Brown, it's just a matter of putting all of his skill sets together. And I do feel like he's finally starting to make a little bit of leeway in that. So I think if Randy Brown can finally put it together, he'll be in the top 15. He'll be in the top 10. He'll be one of those ranked fighters that we could talk about for a long time to come.
And we flip it on over to a couple of guys in the flyweight division that love to stand and bang and have a lot of fun. Tim Elliott taking on Mateus Nicolau. And for Nicolau, his second time with the UFC, his first fight back gets a big win over Manel Kopp. A little bit controversial for Tim Elliott. The guy can eat a shot. The guy can get rocked. He could probably walk through a brick wall and still fight a good fight. But Matt, this is a very interesting fight because I feel like the winner of this fight probably gets a stiff test up the top.
I think you're 100% right. This fight is volume versus power because with Tim Elliott, he just keeps on doing things. It doesn't matter if it's striking, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. He's always active no matter where the fight is. And for Nicolau, I'd say he's probably the biggest puncher in this division. Don't get me wrong. There's a few other big punchers, but he's on that short list of power punchers in the flyweight division. And that's something Tim Elliott's going to have to watch out for. We've never seen Tim Elliott get completely knocked out, but we've seen him get stunned before by some big punchers. So if Nicolau can land that big shot, it could be over quick.
Maybe the winner gets Pantoja when he's back from injury. I know he was very deserving of a title shot. Maybe get like one of those Perez guys, Askarov. I know there's a little bit of a fight there, but all sorts of great stuff. And coming up on this card, only 9 fights, but as we always do with question mark kicks, we start at the bottom, we go up to the top. And yeah, I'm kind of playing, and I don't actually have it, but I'm kind of playing my Michael Jordan flu game. As we go along through this one, Matt, we'll start at the bottom. And again, really appreciate everybody in the chat. Luis Rodriguez hit us up with the super chat saying, congratulations, guys, on the new studio.
Well, thank you.
It's going to be hard to try and figure out this whole computer setup. You might see my eyes drift down below. I've got the graphics. I've got the chat open in front of me. But I'm here nonetheless, Matt. So if we go down through, and Michigonian saying, hey, fellas, good to see the lettuce still growing on Matt. Time for Craig to grow a mullet. Listen, I had the hockey hair, first of all. And Todd saying, love the new studio, fellas. And so is Branch Above. So I really appreciate that, Matt. Let's flip it on down to the bottom. Our first fight on this card, Steve Garcia taking on Charlie Ontiveros. And for Charlie Ontiveros, it was shared with me in a screenshot of his Instagram game. The fact that he was stepping in at 170, and when he fought Kevin Holly, he had to chug something like 2 gallons of water to actually make 182.5. So the move or the idea for Ontiveros was, if I get a fight, it's at 170, great, because I can just pretty much step into the cage, but always thought of a move down to 155. He's 11-7, so 18 pro fights, 1 at middleweight, and the rest of them over at welterweight. This is his first lightweight fight. He weighed in right on the nose, so great for him. For Steve Garcia, he's a guy that spent a lot of time at bantamweight, a little bit at featherweight, a catchweight at 140, 140. I almost said 145. And then he had his last fight against Luis Pena many moons ago at 155, where it was just the wrestling and the overall pressure of Luis Pena that won out in that one. A lot of people are pointing out the fact that Ontiveros, of his 7 losses, all of them by knockout, and whatever happened in his last fight, which was terrible, you know, the neck injury, and Ontiveros coming off of that picogram scandal of a USADA suspension. So he's in, he's fit, he's ready, and he weighed in great. He's taking on Steve Garcia. I don't love this fight, period, but yeah, what are we saying in this one?
This is just a weird fight no matter how you look at it. You have 2 guys who are kind of meeting in the middle of their weight classes because they have spent so much time outside of 155 pounds. Now, it's nice that they are settling on this, but this is the thing about Ontiveros. Of his 7 losses, they are all by knockout. You can't look past that. And it's not always like, oh, he gets hit and he's out. There is a little bit of that, like, oh, when the going gets tough, does he look for a way out? And with Garcia, I do like the forward pressure. We talk about his hand speed and his punching power. Like, those are 2 things that I do think are going to be really effective in this fight because Ontiveros is so upright. He's a little bit more susceptible to getting hit by those big hooks. So I think if Garcia can just close that distance and be smart about it, avoid the big counter shot on the way in, he'll be able to land his own big punch.
Garcia opened a -300. He's a -330 right now. If you look at the comeback for the underdog, Ontiveros, the big guy in there, open a +250, he's +259. Like, that just scares me. You're gambling on a guy who, how good is he really in the lower weight classes? Like, when I cap these guys' career, do I think Ontiveros is going to be a champion in 2 years? No. But do I think Garcia is? Well, no. So if we go over to the chat, Matt, Eric Chavez saying Garcia by decision, Kenny V saying Garcia by points, Snap it MMA or Ontiveros quits. So it seems like a lot of people going Garcia. MPTV saying Garcia won't knock him out. To me, I like Steve Garcia, but like this isn't even a parlay piece. Like I stay way away from this one.
I could see this being one of those fights where Ontiveros is the bigger guy. He just kind of wears on Garcia in the clinch and just makes him feel his overall weight and his size throughout the fight. And it doesn't really make it an exciting fight, but that's probably his best path to victory, although I do think Garcia will be able to get it done.
Over on Instagram at Fight Night Picks, the votes for this one, 59% Garcia to 41% Ontiveros. So if you like Ontiveros and his flashy striking, he's the type of guy that'll throw axe kicks. I just wonder where you're depleted. Do you go for those big power shots that don't land, that are fun, that are showy to watch? I don't know, but we'll see what happens. I mean, it seems like, you know, most people are going with Garcia in this one. So we move into our next fight, Matt, and in this one we have Lupita Godinez taking on Silvana Gómez Juárez, and I absolutely love this fight because on paper, they match up skill for skill very well.
They really do. And Juárez is a very dangerous UFC newcomer. Like we talked about in the prediction video, she's not somebody who is just getting off the couch. She was getting ready for a fight just next week. What, in 3 days? Like, it was in this time period. So everything was sort of lining up for her to take a short notice fight. And the fact that it's against Lupita Godinez is a pretty good case for Juárez because you're getting someone, who's coming off a fairly disappointing UFC debut. I know a lot of people are looking forward to just the overall career of Godinez. They think she has a really high ceiling, and a lot of people thought she won that Panay fight. Don't get me wrong. I myself did too. But the problem is that if you barely beat Jessica Panay, coming off, a 4-year layoff? Like, it's not really an impressive performance or a performance that makes me think, wow, your ceiling is destined to be in that top 10 category. So if Godinez doesn't look good tonight, then maybe we do have to reset our expectations for her and her career as a whole, although I do expect her to get the win.
She's coming off a nasty bout with COVID just 2 weeks before that fight. So it is really tough to tell how that affects an athlete. But when I look at the comments section, man, I mean, Prince Vegeta's son, Juárez. Branch Above, going with Juárez.
Wow.
Tonil Deragush, hot take, I think Juárez beats Godinez. I don't think it's a hot take at all.
No, she very well could.
You look at the way that she fights, good 1-2. She pops the jab out there, throws an occasional leg kick, and when she's in top pressure, same spot as Godinez gets in, I mean, hey, she's got a great opportunity to win. So when I look at the odds for this one, I think they're silly too. I mean, Godinez opened to minus 190. Well, that made sense. Now she's minus 302. When you look at the line for Gómez Juárez, she opened a plus 160. She's now at a plus 243. So, listen, if you don't think that Juárez has a good opportunity, I mean, I think you're sorely mistaken. If we look at the votes at Fight Night Picks for this one, 69% going with Godinez to 31% Juárez. I wouldn't be shocked if Juárez won this fight at all. So if you like her at those plus odds, hey, maybe it's worth a stab for you. I like Godinez with the pressure. I like the fact that she can give one to take one. She doesn't really show damage all that much in 3-round fights. If you go back and watch that one against Demopoulos, rounds 4, rounds 5, she starts to get tagged. And she does eat a lot of shots, but I really do like I really do like Godinez in this spot. But it's a really, really close fight. And I can understand somebody being swayed by those odds. Over there in the comments section, Matt, Keith has Lupita, Nick's partial saying Juárez wins, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I do like Godinez. I wish we got Juárez in the UFC like 10 years ago.
You're 100% right.
Almost 37.
I was just about to say, it's just nice that she is in, because no matter what the result of this fight is, she's probably going to get another fight after this, and hopefully she'll be able to extend upon whatever success she has in this, because, listen, if she beats Godinez, then that's, it's not a massive hype train that you're derailing, but you're picking up a little bit of momentum, and that's a big UFC debut win, so if Juárez is able to get this win, it's a huge opportunity for her.
All right, Matt, move into our next fight. We were split on this pick earlier on in the week. We have Charles Rosa taking on Damon Jackson. Damon Jackson, actually the biggest mover and shaker on this card. I want to say it was about a 66%. Best fight odds give me an error message, but it was somewhere around there. So I can tell you where he opened and where he's at now. He opened a plus 155 underdog. He's about a minus 190 here now for Charles Rosa. Opened a minus 180 favorite. He's now the plus 159 underdog. I want to see everybody on this one. Tonil is saying, I think Rosa wins a decision. AG is saying Jackson easily. Justin's saying, come on, Rosa. And also saying, sup. Matt, yeah, when I look at this fight, I see it as being a very entertaining fight. Damon Jackson's one of those guys, little herky-jerky on the feet, kind of worries you a little bit. But when it goes to the ground, it's Slippery's world here. It's all Damon Jackson. And for Charles Rosa, very credited black belt on the ground as well. He has struggled with some grapplers. And if you go on his recent line, it's win one, lose one, win one, lose one. We just won his last fight, so now it's time to lose. Over in the comments section, Brian saying, loving the WWE figure in the new studio. Let's get them, boys. Who do we have? Oh, yeah, we have the Ultimate Warrior behind us. And then we have Yordan Alvarez and Randy Rosarena behind us. So all sorts of great stuff back there. I love the fight. Anton is saying, what up, Alan Bros? And Austin saying, what's up, boys? Matt, we're split on the pick, but I'm assuming, this is one of those fights where it's not like you're going to end up with some crazy knockout or anything.
I think you could see a TKO from Damon Jackson if he gets in top position. It's just the thing about Charles Rosa and Charles Rosa's grappling is that in top position, he is a really, really good grappler. But when he is on the defensive, we've seen guys overwhelm him. And that's exactly what happened against Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell just threw so many looks at him, threw so many different submission attempts at him that he wasn't really sure what to do next defensively. And against Derek Minner just sort of held him down and wore on him physically. I don't think Damon Jackson can do that, but what Jackson can do is he can wear on you with his pace. He can use his cardio to just set such a high pace with his takedown attempts and with his striking that I just think he's going to be able to win the rounds. He might get finished at some point throughout this fight, don't get me wrong, but I think if he wins round 1 and 2, he's durable enough to not get knocked out by Charles Rosa. I don't think Charles Rosa's in that Ilia Topuria category of punching power, and I don't think Rosa's a good enough grappler to get some kind of a submission off his back on Damon Jackson. So I gotta be honest, I like Jackson quite a bit in this fight just because he's the one who goes after the fight a little bit more. Rosa's on the back foot. He's the one waiting to counter, and unless he catches Jackson with a big shot, I do think Jackson's just going to get off to such a lead that Rosa won't be able to make up the margin.
Tony'll hitting us up in the super chat saying, how did you react to the Haas fight being canceled? With mixed reactions, I guess. Weird. If you don't want to take a fight against Chris Curtis, don't. You don't have to. Nobody's forcing you to do it, so I'm fine with that, but I wish we got a fight. We don't. Haas lives to fight another day, I guess. When I look at this one, yeah, you're right. I mean, for Charles Rosa, he loses when he's on the back foot, but he wins when he's on the front foot, and he's getting out there and setting a bit of a pace. And it doesn't happen often enough, but it does happen. So for me, I mean, yeah, we're split on the pick. I look at the votes for this one. 57% going Rosa with the underdog, 43% going Jackson. I myself have Charles Rosa. Again, maybe not one of the most confident ones, but I like him as an underdog here. You get a guy that opens it at favored odds, and now he's an underdog. I'm absolutely fine with it. I think he's fought a good level of competition in the UFC. Not to say that Jackson hasn't. Look at it. He gets taken down again and again and again by Mirsad Bektic. It was the 7th takedown that ended up giving him the 7th submission attempt that he was able to get. So pretty crazy there. OJ saying change the pick, Craig, so I feel better about my bet. I can't do that. Corey McGregor is in agreement with me. We're both going with Rosa, but that's absolutely fine. Matt, we move into a fight where the votes were not close this week at all at Fight Night Picks. 93% to 7% going with Alexandr Romanov. We saw it out of Jared Vanderaa that the guy can just kind of eat a lot of punishment and move forward. And I mean, was he able to do that in his debut? No. Sergey Spivak just gave it to him. But in his last fight against a striker in Justin Tafa, he was able to do that. And I was very impressed by that. Vanderaa, good wrestling in his back pocket, which could help him in this fight against a power guy in Romanov that usually kind of uses all of his energy in the first round and the second round. He could get tired, so let me know what you're thinking over there in the comment section on this one. But man, you'd be hard pressed to sway me away from picking the Moldovan in this fight.
Jared Vanderaa is the perfect 2004 heavyweight. If you're a striker, I'm a wrestler. If you're a wrestler, I'm a striker. And I just kind of mix it up no matter what. He's got firm strength, he's got fairly good cardio, and he's got a good chin. Nothing about Jared Vandera's game is all that negative. It's just, when you look at the overall game and the skill set of Romanov, his grappling is so overwhelmingly dominant that unless you can defend 3, 4, 5 takedown attempts, I do worry about guys just in any extended grappling sequence against Romanov. And when you're fighting a guy like Romanov, he puts everything behind his strikes in the feet, but he's only trying to take you down. And we saw in the Espino fight, like, if you can defend those takedowns and extend him past that first round and a half, then you can get him in a lot of trouble. I don't think Romanov can go out there and beat a guy like Stipe Miocic, you know? Like, I think he can have a lot of really exciting performances against unranked heavyweights, but once we do start getting into those ranked heavyweights who have, you know, better takedown defense, better cardio, a little bit more well-rounded skill sets than even a guy like Jared Vanderaa, I do think Romanov will struggle, but I think this stage of his career, the sort of building up Romanov, I think he'll be able to get this win pretty easy.
Romanov open to minus 400 favorite. He's minus 566 right now. For Jared Vanderaa, open to plus 330. He's plus 410. And somebody asked, what's Vanderaa in the third round? Vanderaa wins in the third round. Plus, an average is plus 2636, if you like that one. So, yeah, there is that. And somebody asking what the other guy looks like. The other guy is in a Walmart parking lot right now. And, yeah, I'm struggling with Brendan Schaub lips on my hands. I'll go that far.
I forget what I was going to say, but that was good.
That's a fat hand. I said I wasn't going to say it, but yeah, I get stung by a wasp and my whole arm's swollen. This hand's swollen and the other hand, yeah, I got to go back to the hospital. So, yeah, we're going to do the show anyway. But, Matt, we'll move into our next fight. We have Chris Gutierrez taking on the man himself, Felipe Colares. A lot of people like Felipe Colares at weigh-ins. I thought he looked kind of drawn out, but there were comments out there. A lot of people were hot and heavy on that. If we look at it for Colares, kind of winning one, losing one so far in the UFC. But, yeah, we get a good fight here where Chris Gutierrez, a lot of fun. Obviously, Cody Durden threw him for a loop when they fought. And Barcelos is going to have Barcelos, so there is that. For Colares, you want to play MMA math, he lost to Geraldo de Freitas. Chris Gutierrez beat him. All sorts of fun stuff. That's neither here nor there. We get this fight right here. I think it's a close, dynamic fight. I'm interested in this one.
I wish Chris Gutierrez weighed 10 more pounds so he could fight Shane Burgos. Wouldn't that be fun? I think that'd be a lot of fun. That has nothing to do with this fight, but just a thought that I had. This should be an entertaining fight, but the issue is that Gutierrez has those, like, Hall of Fame attributes that you look at when you look at some top 15 fighters. Like, he has a game that has a lot of synergy to it. He starts by breaking down the legs, then the body, then he works the head, and he can mix it up, too. I know we talked a lot about those leg kicking stats, and it might paint the picture that he just goes out there and spams leg kicks, but he does use his boxing to set up his kicks, and his kicks to set up his boxing, too. And I know Andre Ewell, after he beat up that front leg, he was a very limited version of himself, but still, Gutierrez showed that if things go right, and if he isn't fighting a guy who's a dominant wrestler or who has just great output with his strikes, he could be in there and hang with a lot of guys at 135 pounds, I think. And I don't know what Marlon Moraes' contract situation is, but he's on a big losing streak right now, and I do think that the winner of this fight could probably get him as an opponent next, but I do think Gutierrez is going to be able to win this one. I like the game of Colares. It's just, I don't think he can go out there and win enough rounds to beat a guy like Gutierrez. I don't think he can hurt Gutierrez on the feet. If he gets it on the ground, he might be able to, again, just throw enough looks at him to really confuse him and sap some of that cardio, but I like Gutierrez in this matchup.
Yeah, Justin Frank's bringing up that leg kick percentage, and I read it out for every single fight he's had in the UFC, including his loss to Howney. But yeah, I mean, when I look at this one, Matt, I like Gutierrez. You know, there's no hiding that one. If we look at the odds for it, Gutierrez opened, and it loads. And it loads, we're just going to go roughly, he's a minus 250 or thereabouts. Colares coming back at a plus 200. And if you look at the votes for this one, 74% of the fans at Fight Night Picks going with Gutierrez. Yeah, I like Gutierrez in this fight. I mean, listen, the guy does a lot that you like to see in the cage. It would be a surprise to me if Colares is able to get the win. Let's put it that way.
No, I 100% agree.
All right, Matt, we go into our next one. A lot of people are still talking about the Wasps. Sometimes your whole hand blows up.
It'll get you.
I've never had that happen before either. I got stung in the spring, and it was a regular sting, and then now my hand's twice as big as it was and hurts a lot. Sabina Mazow's taking on Maria Agapova. And Matt, this is a tricky fight. I could see an upset happening. I could see Mazow going out there, getting a head kick knockout. I could see Agapova taking it to the mat, submitting her. I have a really hard time with this fight, and I feel like no matter what I say, I'm still going to get it wrong. Like, that's how much it scares me, because it's not often that you see somebody go from a minus 1,500 favorite to an underdog in their next fight. Like, that's just absolutely insane. In this fight, Mazow, the favorite, ever so slightly she is. I mean, she's a what? Now it just wants to load. She opened a minus 180 favorite. She's minus 182 right now. Agapova opened at now it loads some more, whatever. She was a plus, and she's still a plus. Laos Nan saying Agapova might have changed after that embarrassing loss to Dobbs. She's changed camps. which kind of scares me because you're going from the best ATT to the Charles Rosa ATT. Like, it's kind of weird to see that. And I know she's trained a lot with Jillian Robertson. I'm sure Dean Thomas in the wrestling room getting ready for this fight. And I'm sure she's going to go out there and want to grapple. And hopefully in the last year plus, her cardio's gotten quite a bit better. Because the one thing I know about Sabina Mazo is no matter how much I might want to yell at my TV that there needs to be more output, or you got to set your shots up, or stop like walking away, moving your head and keeping your arms down. I think Sabina Mazo just continues to improve here and there. And for Agapova, it's just been too long of a layoff for me.
Okay, I'm going to say a lot of negatives about Agapova, but I'm going to say this first. I don't think you can single out Agapova's last loss all that much because Sabina Mazo basically lost the exact same fight to Alexis Davis. Like, Shayna Dobson and Alexis Davis utilized basically the exact same game plan to beat both of these fighters. I know Dobson isn't the respected opponent that Davis was, but just think about what tactics both those fighters used to beat Mazo and Agapova. They used a lot of forward pressure, they just didn't move backwards, and you just mix in wrestling a little bit. It's kind of the key to beat both of these fighters, and that's the wild thing. Both these fighters similar in age, the exact same amount of fight experience, and their careers have been very similar up until this point. I just look at both these fighters as extremely offensive-oriented, and they don't really know what to do on the defensive end. And I know that's something that normally just takes time, it takes experience, it takes in-cage experience to get used to, but it's... Normally, fighters with 11 fights have slightly more in-cage IQ than both these fighters have, is what I'm trying to say, I think. But what I do think is Mazo has slightly more output. She hits a little bit harder. She's the more technical fighter, and I do like her ability to use her footwork on the outside more than Agapova's. With Agapova, it's a lot of just rushing forward, whereas Mazo will set up her shots almost a little bit too much. Like, the university hockey team in town, they're called UNB Varsity Reds, and their big thing was on the power play, they would just pass the puck. They would pass and pass and pass for like a minute and 59 seconds and they wouldn't get a shot off. That's kind of the game of Mazo. It's just, okay, you're setting it up, you're setting it up, you're setting it up. The setups are great, but at a certain point you do have to take that shot to go for it. With Mazo, I think if she does just mix in a couple more aggressive shots, she'll be able to beat Agapova. I don't think this will be an entertaining fight, but I think Mazo will be able to win like a 30-27.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me. I see it over in the comments section. MMA Locker Room said he spoke with Mazo, said she's going to take this fight to the mat. If she does that, she gets beat. Like, straight up. I see her working and grappling on Instagram. She got her brown belt, whatever. I still think that Agapova is better on the ground, and I favor Mazo on the stand-ups. That's why it's weird. If you see Mazo trying to take her down, Agapova, 53% of the fans on Instagram at Fight Night Picks have Agapova to win, 47% Mazo. I think Mazo wins on the feet, but if she does actually take it to the mat, she's going to lose.
Casey Kenny said he was going to wrestle Songy Dog and then ended up boxing for 15 minutes. You can't put that much stock into it. Like, Sabina Mazo, up until this point, has never gone out there and just started shooting double legs. I just think she's getting ready for the grappling if Agapova's the one who decides to initiate it. I really do. I think Mazo should be able to box her way on the outside. And yeah, it's hard to put a lot of stock into one interview is all I'm saying.
All right, Matt. Sean McMinn hitting us up in the super chat. Really appreciate that, Matt. We'll move into our next fight. And we have this one as one of two possible fight of the nights, and they're back-to-back now because Tim Elliott, Mateus Nicolau, they get the shine up on the main card, and I absolutely love this fight. Okay. I think it's fireworks. I think it's electric. I can throw a lot more buzzwords around about it. But let's not beat around the bush. We split up on this pick, and listen, Mateus Nicolau, he's got that power, and he's been a little more reserved in some of his fights since he's left the UFC, which I like to see it of a guy like that, because it's not like he's going out there overextending himself, getting starched, losing the fight. For Tim Elliott, never been knocked down in a UFC fight, and he has been around the block. And I talked about Phil Haas like this yesterday, or it's not Phil Haas, Chris Curtis over on Twitter. It's like that Fred Pennerson. The cat came back the very next day. Tim Elliott came back. You thought he was a goner. He just takes a wicked amount of punishment. One of these days he's going to catch up with him. I hope this isn't the fight for him, but man, I like Mateus Nicolau in this one.
This is a really interesting fight, and I'm kind of interested to hear that pick out of it because normally we pick the guys who value work rate over just finishing ability. And I do look at this fight as Tim Elliott wins the decision or Nicolau is able to finish him. And I can't really disagree with anything you said. I think Nicolau has good defensive submissions. I think maybe he could catch Elliott in a guillotine. We've seen that happen before. I think Nicolau is definitely the more powerful puncher on the feet. There's definitely a ton of avenues for Nicolau to win this fight. I just think Elliott can avoid getting finished. He went a hard 25 minutes with Demetrius Johnson. He's been hit by big power punchers. Askarov hits pretty hard. I know he's stiff on the feet. He might not look all that fluid.
Look at what he did to Joey B on the feet.
Exactly. He basically retired poor Joseph Benavidez. And he beat the brakes off of Tim Elliott, but he did it on the feet too. And the way that he was able to land really nice straight shots at the middle is a lot different than the looping shots of Nicolau. Nicolau isn't as much of that like working behind the jab sort of a boxer where he's going to throw that shot at the middle. He will loop his hooks a little bit more, and Tim Elliott's good at ducking under, going for legs when guys do open up with their hands. So I do think Tim Elliott can use his overall fight IQ to win this fight.
If you're looking, I see somebody throwing down the takedown stat of 100% for Nicolau. Louis Smolka tried to take him down once, and John Moraga tried to take him down once. So he's defended 2 takedowns. I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into that one. So I'm just putting that one out there, and I want to make sure I get it right as to who that was. Somebody was asking for 100 likes. That'd be cool.
It would be.
You know what they say, big hands, big wasp sting. Well, listen, the king of the stings already... Do they still do that? Are the 2 of those guys still on that show? I see the guy that was on You Gotta Be Fresh. What's that show? Workaholics. He's on that show all the time. I don't know what's going on in the world anymore. I'm in a rough spot. I like Mateus Nicolau in this one. I think on the feet, yeah, Nicolau gets it done. But again, yeah, you're right. Normally I do like the wrestling. I do like the complete game, the pitter-patter style of a guy like Tim Elliott, just not in the spot. I think Nicolau is going to have his number tonight. Over in the comments section, Real News MMA, could Tim Elliott shock with a plus 1250 TKO KO?
I don't think so. Nicolau's not the most durable guy in the world, though. Like, Dustin Ortiz dropped him.
I love him. He's great. Matt, we move into our next one. Rude boy Randy Brown made weight with his big frame. Jared Gooden didn't on short notice. If you're going to take a short notice fight, make weight. Or don't make weight, and then you get a main event. Sometimes stuff like that happens. Like next weekend when Aspen Ladd takes on Norma Dumont in a 5-round fight at featherweight. Have you ever seen something so ridiculous in your life? But Jared Gooden coming in on short notice takes on Randy Brown. Brown already had a date, needed a dance partner, and apparently Jared Gordon was the guy on his beeper waiting for that call. He got it. He gets this opportunity. Big vibes of power from his last fight against Niklas Stutz. I said Dustin Stossfuss in the video. Listen, the O's, they get me. The German pronunciations, they get me. I made a mistake. I was wrong. So I guess apologies to Dustin Stossfuss, who didn't look good in his last fight. Jared Gordon starched Niklas in that fight. Now he gets Randy Brown. But Randy Brown's tricky. He's shifty.
Randy Brown's way better at everything. Like, this is just an odd matchup, to be completely honest. I think Gooden's really good. I think he has great punching power, and I do think he has surprising hand speed for how big he is. But my issue is that he doesn't really let his hands go all that much. He's sort of in that Jairzinho category, you know? And I think Jairzinho is a much better fighter than Gooden. But still, I think if he moves forward, he's really effective. When he's on the back foot, he becomes significantly less effective. And when you're fighting a guy like Randy Brown, who can press you with his kicks, can press you with his boxing, can use his clinch and his wrestling, I just like Randy Brown a lot in this fight. I know we have it as our fight of the night, and normally I say, hey, we don't have this as fight of the night because we think it's going to be a one-sided fight. I think this might be a one-sided fight. I really do. I think Randy Brown is the much more well-rounded fighter, and I think if he does decide, hey, I just want to wrestle, I just want to strike, he sort of has all the weapons and all the tools to just decide where this fight's going to take place.
I look over there in the comments section, Prince Vegeta's son saying, it's very hard to count out Gordon. You mean Gooden? Jared Gordon had a big win last weekend, if that's what you're talking about. He's coming to finish,
Craig,
and
you
somebody's going to get
like
the finish.
3 times.
Jared Gooden is one of those guys that, when it's on the feet, he's got a chance. But the thing for me is you look at his record and then you look at the records of the guys that he's fought, and you can pick and choose which ones you like and which ones you don't. Jared Gooden's a guy, he struggled with Alan Jouban, had a couple of moments, really struggled with Abubakar Nurmagomedov because I'm sure the whole camp was just takedown defense. And, he didn't really respect the striking. But, when I look at this one, Matt, I like Randy Brown. When I look at the fan vote, 72% going with Brown to 28% that have Gooden. And when I look at the odds, they're a little bit silly. Lausnan, hey, it's the B game. It's a Washington game. I'm allowed to make mistakes today. Gooden open, a plus 170 is a plus 205.
The reason people remember that game against Utah is because Michael Jordan didn't make mistakes.
Yeah, and he didn't actually have a flu. And Randy Brown opened minus 200, and he's now minus 250. Yeah, I like Randy Brown in this one quite a bit.
Now, here's the question, I guess. Do you expect Randy Brown to finally get a ranked opponent if he does win this fight?
Well, that's a really tough question. Let's see who's ranked. UFC rankings. Matt throwing a wrench into the whole show.
No, it's just, you just think if he deserves it or not.
Maybe you give Randy Brown the fight in Damian Maia's retirement. like
That'd
make
be a
that
good
fight.
matchup.
I know he's not ranked anymore. Welterweight at the bottom. Daniel Rodriguez out because he's got a giant hand like I do, the hand
One
surgery.
name. I think Robbie Lawler, Randy
Muslim
Brown could be fun.
Salakov's ranked now at 14. Give him that. Like, I'd be fine with that fight. But, yeah, I want to hear from everybody over there in the comment section. There's yeses, there's nos. And Prince Vegeta's son saying Matt's counting out Gooden, which means Randy Brown's about to get starched. Ooh, got him. Matt in our main event, Marina Rodriguez, Mackenzie Dern. We're split on the pick. But this is another one of those fights. Either one of two things is going to happen. Marina's going to keep it standing. She's going to pop that jab out there. She's going to throw her long-range weapons if it goes into the clinch. Marina with the elbows. Or Mackenzie Dern gets it down one time, and it's going to be a bad spot for Marina Rodriguez. It really is.
This fight's going to be one-way traffic. We just don't know which way the sign's going. Because if Mackenzie Dern does get that single takedown, armbar, leg locks, chokes, whatever you want, she's got it. Like Anthony Edwards, whatever you need, I got it. Baseball, soccer, hockey, table tennis. You need it, she's got it. That's Mackenzie Dern's jiu-jitsu. It's like that sketchy guy in high school who had watches and a trench coat. You need it, Mackenzie Dern's got it.
No high school ever had that.
No, I know. It's a commonly used trope. This is the thing about Rodriguez, though. If she does win, it's going to look terrible for Dern. She's going to keep her at range with her jab. She's really going to bust up her face with her long-range weapon. She's going to attack that front leg that's going to hurt her explosiveness for her takedown attempts. Like, it's really going to look good for one fighter and really bad for the other. I don't think this is going to be a back-and-forth brawl like Volkanovski or Ortega was. I do think, though, with Rodriguez and her long-range abilities and weapons, she'll be able to keep Dern so far away from her that I just don't think Dern's going to be able to get good takedown attempts off in the first place. Now, what I will say is that if Mackenzie Dern can at least bait out a sprawl from Rodriguez, she might be able to then initiate some sort of a scramble, because we've seen it in past fights. Adesanya, when he fought Vettori, is an example. When Vettori shot him for his life, and Adesanya was just so quick to it that he initially sprawled. He almost did it too well. If Mackenzie Dern can draw something like that out to just get Rodriguez off of her feet, then maybe she can get it into a scramble and pull a submission off. I just don't think her wrestling is good enough to get this fight to the mat, though.
Good point over there in the comments section saying Justin Franks also, Rodriguez came down a weight class. She just had that one off. It was a short notice main event against Watterson. That's why she was at 125. And MPTV saying Emrod is a big girl. That's where it is. Yeah, she did look a lot bigger than Dern when they did face off after the weigh-ins. But Rodriguez is a strawweight, just so we have that one. When I look at this one, though, yeah, you're right. Rodriguez, though, has had questionable takedown defense in the UFC, and that's the thing that might scare a lot of people away from her. I think her striking is world class. I mean, she's had, 17 fights and only lost one. She's had 2 draws, and you can draw your own conclusion from those fights. But the takedown defense from Rodriguez, 62%. If I go through who was able to take her down, Watterson, Hebos, Esparza 5 times, Calvillo, Randa Marcos. So there have
I would say all natural wrestlers, though.
There have been women taking her down. With Dern, her hands improved, but is this the one where you fall in love with your hands? Like, Brian Ortega's hands look great against a Korean Zombie. They didn't look so great in his last fight. So
Yeah, they didn't look that bad.
they look really bad.
Did you watch the same fight I did?
It was a fun fight. They didn't look that great compared to Volkanovski's. And I think in striking, like the levels in this one, like Beast and 25-8 would say, there's levels between Dern and Rodriguez in terms of the strikes. But when we look at this one, Matt, at Fight Night Picks for the fans, 62% have Dern, 38% have Rodriguez. I think it's a really close one. Prince Vegeta's son, in the interview, Mackenzie Dern is kind of scared that this girl says she's going to have a war. It is what it is.
We can't put stock into some interviews and none into others, though. Be consistent with it.
I don't like, I don't like looking too far into that. I like Dern in this fight if she does get it to the mat. But again, you have Rodriguez, so we're split.
Yeah, again, one of us is gonna look stupid one way or another, because either Rodriguez is gonna bust her up for 3.5 rounds, land a straight right, knock her out, or Dern's gonna get she's gonna rush in, get one of those waist trip takedowns like Overeem did on Stefan Struve, fall into her full guard, take her back, and choke her out. I really don't see this being, Dern's gonna win the first round with her boxing, Rodriguez roars back for 2 rounds, then Dern gets a 4th round submission. I really do think whoever establishes their success and momentum early on is just gonna keep it, and I think that fighter's gonna be Rodriguez. But yeah, again, this is a fight where I can't disagree with anything that you've said, though.
Joe Rogan called Ortega and Volkanovski fight of the year. That's because he doesn't watch the fun fights in the prelims. So, Matt,
wait, you actually don't think that was fight of the year?
There's been so many good fights, and obviously we'll talk about it at the end of the year. I'll come up with a list. I'll put it out there on Twitter.
Yeah, but just the fact that you're just automatically like, oh, it's not.
OJ wants a Fury Wilder prediction. We got Usyk the last time. That was pretty good, right?
We did. So this is the thing. Tyson Fury's gonna win, and there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever. I think he's a better boxer. I think if he's super aggressive like he was the last time, he kind of proved that the best way to deal with a power puncher is don't ever let them get the extension and the range on their punches, and then you can deal with it that way. I don't like the fact that Deontay Wilder weighed in at like 232. Him at his best is like 209. I know a lot of people think of him as like this big scary heavyweight, but when he was at his best, and maybe he wins today, but when he was at his best, he was kind of a thin, wiry guy. Like, he's not built like Kevin Durant, but Deontay Wilder's not this big, jacked heavyweight. He really relied on his hand speed and his incredible power for how thin he is. I think he's weighing more so trying to keep Tyson Fury off of him just because the weight probably wore on him the last time. He made too many excuses, and I love Deontay Wilder. Like, bomb squad for life, but yeah, Tyson Fury's got this without a doubt.
Yeah, I've got Tyson Fury as well in the trilogy bout. The first one was crazy. The second one, not as much. Crazy. The third one, I'm really looking forward to this one. It should be great tonight. Matt, we got 9 UFC fights. You'll be able to catch the big boxing card later on as well. So let's go all the way back through and recap it. Everybody over there in the comment section is having a good time. Toss a like, toss a sub. That Dana White's Contender Series show, if you want it, you got to subscribe and tell your friends. So, Matt, we move back down to the bottom. Steve Garcia taking on Charlie Ontiveros. This is going to be one of those ones that somebody is going to hit up the comment section. They're either going to say the nicest compliment they ever have at this video, or they're going to say something very nasty and very rude. I look forward to this. I threw this one on every card. It's silly because of the unknown. One guy's never fought at 155. One guy's fought at 155 once. And the guy who's never fought at 155 is a glass cannon, and he's lost 7 fights by knockout. So I've got Garcia in this one. Would I be surprised, though, if the big man himself, Ontiveros, goes out there, flashy strikes, and throws a spinning back fist and gets a knockout? No. But I like Garcia due to the consistency of his career. Yikes.
No, that's really the perfect breakdown. I agree with everything.
All right, Matt, we move into our next one. Lupita Godinez taking on Silvana Gómez Juárez. This is one of the closest fights on this card. So again, take everything with a grain of salt. I like Godinez here, the younger fighter. She's a busy fighter. But if you watch any Gómez Juárez tape of your own, you know how good she is on the feet, and she cannot be overlooked in this fight.
Gómez Juárez is a really exciting, not prospect, but fighter making her debut. If Godinez is the fighter that we all think she can be, she should be able to win this fight. Like, fighters who are destined to be ranked don't normally lose fights on a week's notice to a 37-year-old. So I do expect Godinez to look good in this one.
Matt, we're 97 likes, 350 people tuning in. Now we're way over 100. Now we're way over 100. So listen, keep them coming. I think we can get over 300. We move into our next fight. I think it's a decent one. Rosa taking on Jackson. I like the underdog odds on Charles Rosa in this fight. I think if he keeps it pitter-patter and gets out of the way and doesn't get caught up in Damon Jackson's game, that's how Rosa's going to win. Don't be on the back foot the whole fight. Easier said than done, because no word of a lie. Win one, lose one, win one, and he looks different in every single fight, which scares you, but I do like Rosa in this one. I can definitely understand the Damon Jackson pick, though.
This is a super fun fight, and it's going to be a fun fight no matter where it takes place. If it's just on the feet, it should be really entertaining. If it's just on the mat, the exact same thing. I just think Damon Jackson has a slightly higher work rate, and he's the one moving forward, and that's what judges really like. So I do think Damon Jackson, with his overall volume, and if it does go to the mat, it's not that I disregard Charles Rosa as a really high-level grappler. I just don't think he's as high-level as some of the other aces in this division, and I think Jackson might have the slight grappling edge.
All right, Matt. Rosa a little bit more active with the striking than Jackson, but again, a little bit more of a sample size from Rosa in terms of those numbers. We move into our next fight, Romanov taking on Vanderaa. This is the one I would be most surprised if Vanderaa won. If it happens, I know people asked about it. It was like plus 2,500 for him to get the win in the third round. Maybe that's what you like if Romanov falls off a cliff, but I'm taking Romanov here. I don't think he's going to fall off the cliff.
The only question is, how many of those like King Kong double hammer fists do you think Romanov's going to try to land? One?
Remember that time when he fought Marcos Rogério de Lima and then he used his forearm to choke him and won a UFC fight with a forearm choke?
Such a meathead move. I love it though. Like, Romanov's a fun heavyweight, and hopefully he is able to get up into the rankings, because it would just make the division a lot more interesting if he was in there against other high-level guys. Like him suplexing his coach and throwing people around the cage. Stuff like that is what gives you the it factor and what gives eyeballs to the sport. So hopefully Romanov can get a little bit of momentum and can establish himself as a real contender in this division.
All right, Matt. Next fight, we have Gutierrez, Colares. I'm going with Chris Gutierrez in this one. establishing the kick early, making Colares switch stances, really making him think a lot, and then maybe mix in a little bit of the wrestling. I like Gutierrez here.
100%. I like the leg kicks. I like the wrestling. I like his overall game. And it'll be interesting to see where the ceiling of Gutierrez is, because I could see one version of his career where he's in like the top 10 and sticks around for a little bit. And I could see other versions where he just kind of flames out. But I do think he'll be able to get this win over Colares.
You need Gutierrez to be more active, but Felipe Colares is a dangerous fighter when it is on the feet. Branch above saying leg kick TKO from Gutierrez. He was able to do that in his
just gross.
Second to last fight or third to last fight was a Morales one. I think it was third to last fight. No, because it was Morales, Dern, and then Ewell. Next one, we have Mazzo taking on Agapova. I really do like this fight. I mean, it's so hard to try and get a good read on it. Both fighters, same age. Both fighters, same record. Somebody's going to go to 10-2. Somebody's going to go to 9-3, unless there's a no contest or a draw. I don't see that one happening. I like Mazzo for the complete game that she showed, but again, it scares me where Agapova goes from way up here to way down there in one fight. I understand it. It was a bad showing against Dobson. It was good early, and then it went really bad. It was almost like Max Roshkov bad is how it went round 1, round 2. But for me, yeah, I've got Mazzo in this one.
They both have very, like, bend, don't break kind of games. Like, if you do start to find the holes in their game plan, it normally goes south pretty fast, but I think Mazzo can be the more active fighter. I do think she can use her movement to at least stifle some of the takedown attempts from Agapova, and she's definitely the fresher fighter if this goes into the third round, so I like Mazzo.
Our next one, Tim Elliott, Mateus Nicolau. Split on the pick, but I really do love the fight, and you can easily see a path for both guys here. I mean, Elliott with the well-roundedness, the wrestling, the volume that he has on the feet, and with Mateus Nicolau, that knockout power, the stuff that you have to worry about. And sometimes when you fight a guy like that, you kind of get caught in a mirror and it's freeze frame all the time. But I like Nicolau in this one. You've got Tim Elliott.
This is power versus activity. Should be a phenomenal fight, and I really do think this is going to be fight of the night. Like, I know we put the screens up, but at the end of the day, they're probably going to give this bonus out. Like, I'm pretty much expecting the tweet from the UFC already. I have very high hopes for it. I think Tim Elliott will be able to get it done. It might not be pretty. He might get dropped along the way. He might get put into some sticky submissions, but I think he'll be able to get the decision.
Anton Jasing, why do I think Godinez is going to win? Why do I think Godinez is going to win? I don't know, man. I mean, he missed weight by 3 pounds. He came in at 174. Randy Brown has a size advantage. I'm eager to see both these guys step into the cage against each other once they've rehydrated, because Randy Brown looked way bigger at the weigh-ins. Brown coming in, better level of competition throughout his career, better wins. Not that that means a whole lot. It's how you get to that dance that Jared Gooden came into on short notice. But yeah, I don't really love the game of Gooden against Randy Brown. Could Gooden go in there and get the win by knockout? Sure, but I think that's the only way he wins this fight. I don't see him even winning a decision against Randy Brown.
The only way Gooden wins is because MMA has 4-ounce gloves and anybody's a knockout puncher. Like, Randy Brown has the much more well-rounded skill set. He's the much better fighter on the outside, on the inside, on the mat. Like, other than just knockout ability, I do like Randy Brown in this fight, and I do expect him to get those borderline top 15 guys next. Like, Robbie Lawler, maybe, like, just names that are either big or guys who are near the rankings.
Anton J saying the fighters that miss weight have been winning. It's like a reverse jinx. It was more like that, like, I think 2019. That was a big thing. It goes
through phases.
But, yeah, I'm not too high on Jared Gooden in this fight. And then in our main event, Dern taking on Rodriguez. It's such an interesting fight. I said it at the start of the week. I think the winner gets Carla Esparza. A lot of people were upset with that, but Carla needs a fight, and yeah, I think she deserves the title shot over anybody. I don't think we needed to see a rematch between Rose and Wei Li, but it is what it is. Just like I'm not for a lot of these fights that seem to happen, but including next weekend's main event.
Oh my goodness.
Rodriguez Dern is a very interesting fight. Striker versus grappler. I've got the grappler in this one. How she gets it to the mat, I do not know, but I think it will go to the mat. I think she's going to get the win.
It all comes down to the wrestling of Mackenzie Dern. And that's not great. Like, her wrestling is probably the weakest part of her game. But the great news is, if she can get past that hurdle, then she's on the ground and she should win very quick by submission. On the feet, going to be interesting. I do think she's made good improvements in her stand-up game. I just don't think she's on the level of someone like a Marina Rodriguez. I really do think that, like, Rodriguez, at least her striking is in that Joanna category, is in that Wei Li category. I think she can hold her own with those fighters in the feet. I just think it comes down to, like, cardio output and, you know, sort of the X factors after once you get to the top of the division. But I think if she can keep it on her feet, she should be able to beat Mackenzie Dern. But I do think this should be a fun fight for as long as it lasts.
Should be a fun one. Next week, we have Aspen Ladd taking on Norma Dumont. A couple of weight missers at 135 pounds. They're going to meet at 145. It's a 5-round fight. all of this benefits Norma Dumont, who was getting ready for a fight against Holly Holm anyway, but I'm looking forward to it because that fight card actually has a lot of really good ones. I mean, Ludwig Klein's coming back off his loss from Mike Trezano. There's a lot of names peppered in there that I'm going to have a lot of fun with doing the tape study, putting the videos out. So make sure you tune in for that. Subscribe if you haven't, and toss a like, because we want to bring that Dana White's Contender Series stuff to you. And maybe I'll go back to Walmart and show the Wasp who's boss. But for right now, I'm going to go back to the ER and get another IV. So hopefully my hand and my arm stop swelling, because no word of a lie, I know it looks skinny in this, but they're twice as fat as they normally are. So I'm in a rough spot. I had fun doing the show, but yeah, I have to go now.
All right, yeah. Have a great day, guys. Hopefully you guys have fun watching the card.
Enjoy your weekend. Thanks so much for tuning in. For everybody in the Super Chat and all the support, keep locked in with Fight Night Picks. As we always say, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt.